um, before we start. She won't miss anything. Everybody get a chance to kind of look over your minutes. Uh-oh. Was that me sounding like that?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't like my voice.
That way.
Hmm. What? That's all right. Let me see. Hold on. Let me close it.
Terrific. Okay.
You share his screen.
Oh, I got
And you do have copies of his presentation to follow along.
Yeah, and I'm sharing the screen right now. So are you able to see that?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. You just let me know when you would like me to start.
Go ahead, you can start.
Oh, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody, and would like to be there in person with you all. But I'm grateful that you're able to accommodate since I'm on travel. Um, I wanted to just go through a couple updates, really focused on the north and south parcel development. Um, so there we go. Just want to cut as a reminder, there might be some new members on the board. I don't know, or maybe just as a reminder, the back process, base realignment and closure, that's been going on since 2009 with the Army. And about 1,400 acres, about 257 were retained by the Army Enclave. That's your neighbor directly next door. That's administered by Fort Gordon. And then the north parcel, that's at the farthest end where the URA is working on development now. That 250 acreage, that north parcel was transferred on 24th of August 2023. The south parcel also transferred by the end of 2023. So the last time we met was back in July or thereabouts. All the land has been transferred at this point. And so that's a really tremendous milestone. Just for reference, because I'll be mentioning this later in this quick presentation, the North landfill area is this purple area, and I know the URA is actively involved in that. So I'm just pointing out where that North landfill is at when I refer to it. And the South landfill area is here, and there's building 600 and 650 that's shown. Joy Lake is shown in here too, as well as Marchman. I'm calling that out for reference now because I'm going to be talking about that as well in a minute. The rest of the base is occupied at this point with a number of, frankly, Fortune 500, some Fortune 50 companies that are there. Everybody from Kroger, obviously Robinson Weeks. We've got a number, Amazon, and a few other places that are there too. So that's fantastic that we're doing that far along. The stakeholders for this project have been and still are the URA, the City of Forest Park, the master developer, and Oasis, the Army BRAC Division, which is out of Savannah, Georgia EPD, which is primarily the Brownfield program, and Stephanie Horowitz. We've worked with her now for as long as we've been in the project. Legal counsel on both party sides, which has been very, very helpful as well as potential end users, which I've just been contacted by another potential end user, which is kind of common when they want to know a little bit more about what's the Army's involvement, what are these wells doing here, those types of things. And I'll talk about that in more detail as we go along. But Oasis has been the hub of the stakeholder wheel, if you will, and the responsibility to help facilitate cleanup and transfer of the property. I end up interfacing with all the stakeholders, including the Army at this point. So, so far things have gone very, very well. It's been a very successful transfer of property and a very successful development. Partly due to this slide, which is the tripart strategy, which really there's three elements here. And I'll just, because I've talked about this before, but folks may not remember. There's environmental insurance that's been placed on the property, which helps to quantify and limit perhaps environmental exposure should something unknown come up. And we've had those instances already. For example, most recently in the south parcel, we've had some lead exposure or lead impacted soil that came up. Under the insurance, just so everybody understands, if lead in soil or other elements are found with lead, those are actually excluded from the original insurance policy, mainly because lead was common at the base and the insurance folks excluded that compound. The other compound that's come up recently is perfluorinated compounds, which we talked about a few meetings back. Perfluorinated compounds, PFAS, PFOA. They're limited to groundwater at this point and in very small amounts, but those compounds are also excluded from coverage in most insurance. Um, the Army still continues under the Circle of 120H covenant, which is in the deed that you all have for property, for funding remediation of known soil and groundwater contamination. So we talked about the work in the South landfill area. We actually went to the Army and we're going to go after them under this covenant because of the lead that was found in soil. And the Army said, at the end of the day, they said, you know what, why don't you guys just go ahead and effect that change and then, seek recovery as a claim afterwards. So a little bit different approach there. The Army had no contractor available. It would have taken them a long time to get somebody under contract. And this is not, there's nothing political about it. The fact of the matter is we've had a change in federal government. There's changes I know that are already starting at the Army Corps of Engineers, but those are yet to be determined. So there's a lot of unknowns in that regard. However, this covenant still protects this authority in that regard and having the Army do their work. So instead of the Army coming out and actually physically doing the work, which they didn't have the contractor in place to do it, they said, go ahead and do it and send us the bill. So we're in the process of that work that we did that supported effort in the South landfill, as well as the work that Robinson Weeks did. Claims have been filed and are just a financial claim. So we're looking to be reimbursed, both of us, both parties, reimbursed back from the government for those services that were being provided. And so that's going in place just like per the deed, which is good news. The Army's shirking their responsibility, which is a good thing. Property acquisitions as well go under the Georgia Brownfield law. So these are the three parts, and the Georgia Brownfield law provides folks who are coming to the property that want to build additional environmental protections from compounds and constituents that they may run into when they're doing work. We're doing some work with the folks at Waken for a building that they're putting up. They've come across a couple of minor items as well. Nothing major, but they've also had wells to deal with. We've been interfacing with the Army on their behalf as well. So that's kind of where that comes in place in terms of the brownfield law and those requirements. So this is the tripart strategy, as we like to call it. It's definitely working. It's definitely reduced potential environmental liability to the URA and to the citizens of Forest Park. To put a picture to it, there was excavated debris in this area here on screen, and this area, the north end as well, had combined soil and debris. This one down here had again combined soil and debris, backfill material. What we ended up doing was working with Robinson Weeks and their contractor. They ended up taking out the debris that went off to a landfill. The soils that were left were recharacterized, resampled. There was a lot more testing and sampling done. Again, the Army didn't have the troops ready to do it, so that was part of the claim. We did all that work with Robinson Weeks, and it basically all those soil levels met Georgia EPD requirements. So we were able to reuse those soils underneath building pads. There was a big pad for 600 and 650 that's been built. And so they were able to use it there. We worked with Georgia EPD. They were absolutely fine with it. It was a perfect solution to this particular case, and it was able to save a lot of time and money for everybody. We're still waiting on payment on that claim from the Army for us as well as Robinson Weeks, but I'm told it's in process. So that's the south landfill that came up most recently since the last time we spoke, actually. But everything again worked exactly the way it needed to. This is more of a reminder for the URA, and if there's new members on board, this is helpful as well. But on post land use controls for the north parcel, there's no development and use of the property for residential. So I think everyone may know that, but I'm re-emphasizing that. Residential use is not permitted in the north parcel. No extraction of groundwater for any purpose. That's across the entire site. That's all of Gillum in general. There's no extraction for groundwater for any purpose other than remediation or monitoring, and that's being done by the Army. Municipal water, the city has already confirmed to the Army and others and the public that all the municipal water is taken care of by the city and Clayton County at that point. So off-post land use controls, that would be groundwater monitoring. That's the Army. That's their wells off-post. They take care of those. We've already verified the municipal water supply and periodic wells and public education and outreach. So I know that the Army does a fair bit of that outreach in terms of just web type information, but it is out there and available to the public. All the documents that the Army has put together over the years are also available to everybody in the city of Forest Park or anywhere really. The public domain, and they operate a SharePoint web portal where people can go there if they want to look at these monstrous documents. They're available. To put another fine point on it, I know you folks are working, URA, you're working on a building up in this northern area. These are just the last graphical that's been done. There's building in here for land air considered. Kroger was the first takedown. Calera, Cummins is here. Kuhnagel, HD Supply, XPO, Amazon, HD Supply. I mean, these are all Fortune, 100 companies. This is, unprecedented. I mean, the city of Forest Park and the URA has done a fantastic job here being able to attract this type of very, very big clients with this base here to this logistics center. This is a big deal, and it's added to the success that you all have had. I wanted to note in this one corner by Stevens Lake, again, these go to the URA responsibilities. There's a number of lakes. I already talked about Marchman. And for those who don't know, Marchman Lake did have a leak long ago when I first got involved in the project and Fred Bryant was here. It was the first thing that actually the URA tackled, which was a reconstruction of that dam at Marchman. It was becoming breached and it was jeopardizing a break potentially, which would have flooded the downstream neighbors. Fred, along with myself and the URA at the time, went ahead and got that dam fixed. And it's in perfect shape. It's been functioning well for the last decade, no problem. This dam, Stevens Lake, has just expressed this leak. My senior geotechnical engineer, Ben Thomason, is down at the site. He works on many of the building development projects, either at Waken or at Robinson Weeks or any of the other folks that are down there. And he happened to be going past this area, actually, right on this road, and went past the dam and said, "Hey, Mike, I think that the emergency spillway has a leak showing." So I was down anyway. I came over, took a look at that with him, and yes, there is a leakage there. And so as a part of tonight's presentation, I'm coming to the URA board to consider we need to continue to look at and retain the services of Walden Ashworth. They've done all the dam work on the site now to date. And they've given us a proposal again, and I'll respectfully submit that if the board is open to look at that post this meeting. They've submitted a proposal to do an inspection in the field of the dam, figure out what they feel is actually going on, figure out potentially what the fix would be, and what budgetary costs might look like to repair that. Their cost for that was about $4,500 for those services, including the report, the field visit, and their observations, and a meeting with this URA board as well. They could present to that when they get their findings. I'm recommending that we consider this as a part of this work because the URA has those responsibilities at this point. So I wanted to make you all aware of that. I don't want to see, what we don't want to see is a failure of that emergency spillway and the down gradient. I don't think there was any neighbors particularly, not mistaken, but there are because it eventually goes into Joy Lake. So there's potentially some neighbors downstream on that south side. So that's probably the newest element that's come up recently. These are just, again, reminders about compliance with land use controls and implementation. So again, assuring that the Army is able to do what they need to do when they need to come in, allowing them access to wells, which you're constantly doing now. It's very important. The Army has a lot of groundwater monitoring activities. There are also going to be a lot of abandonment activities as well of wells. Both in the north parcel, I know that there's an extensive amount of wells up there. I know the URA's working in that area, so you may be well aware of that. Maybe you've already addressed these. There's a lot of wells up there that would need to be abandoned. Some may need to be replaced. In the south parcel, where there's two buildings where there was approximately, I don't know, 30 wells or so that the Army owned, if you will, that were impacted by the development by Robinson Weeks. So we worked with the Army to develop a cost estimate based on their projections. And that developer cost, meaning the cost that would potentially go back to Robinson Weeks, would be on the order of $450,000 to put in new wells per the Army's requirements in that south parcel. So I wanted to just put that out there to say that there is opportunity for that. These things can happen when there are a lot of wells both in the north and in the south area. So as they're considering their development, Robinson Weeks has been taking that into consideration as a part of their potential costs. Again, similarly in the north landfill, should be doing the same thing there as well. Take that into consideration as you go forward. I also noted too that there's two dam features in that north area that were originally inspected by Oasis and Walden Ashworth again some time ago. They are both aged and they are probably in need of some maintenance, mainly brush cutting from the last report I got. It was a matter of tree cutting and removal since on the dam face and in the spillway areas possibly. So, but it did not appear at the time there was any leakage of those dams. It just needed a little bit of maintenance. I think Bruce had looked at that before he had retired out. So again, I'm asking that you allow us to consider and put forth a proposal for consideration for Walden to do that additional work for $4,500. This is in accordance with the Georgia Safe Dam program. It's required. It's in the Georgia Safe Dam group. And so you have to have a safe dam expert do that work. And Walden Ashworth has done all that work at the property to date. There's also maintaining the boundary fence, utilities, routine maintenance. And we just talked about Stevens Lake as well just now in terms of the emergency spillway and getting Walden to take a look at that as well. I would say that the path forward is that the land's been transferred completely. I think we're in pretty good shape. I gave an example on hazardous soil that was uncovered and how that was addressed very quickly by the Army and by Robinson Weeks. I think that went well. The Army is still installing new wells, which I just discussed. And I would like to just note that the Oasis contract was renewed as of June 2023 through June 2024 to continue and finish land transfer under the current Army schedule that we had talked about previously. But through good management, I was able to manage and stretch those dollars and get an extra 6 months of effort out of that. So actually, I was able to do a year and a half, and I stretched the effort to December 2024. Currently, we have about $2,300 left in that original contract. So I got a year and a half out of that original 1 year contract. And I'm requesting and we'll put in a formal proposal as well to the URA to consider a $45,000 budget for 1 year from December to December, which would also include the $4,500 for Walden in order to do the dam work that we just talked about. And that budget would be through December 2025, and it would be only an as needed or if needed basis. It's only used when things like this come up and you need to tap into services of myself and Oasis to assist the URA board. Otherwise, that fund of money just stays where it's at. So if there's any further discussions on that, we can have those well, as I get closer to the end. I put this map in because I wanted to just bring everybody's attention again to the north parcel, which you all are working on. Note all the wells, all these blue dots are wells. These are the plumes that are going off site that the Army is actively remediating. The majority of these wells I know are Army wells. I don't know if all of these are Army wells, but I'm sure you all are looking into that. So you need to remember to take that into consideration. On the south parcel, these are the wells that I was talking about where Robinson Weeks had buildings in here and disturbed or damaged a number of these wells in the south parcel. There's also a bunch of wells in this part of the south parcel as well, and that's about it. But I just wanted to show again that there's a plume that also goes to the south as well that the Army is actively working on remediating, which is why they needed the wells up in here. They need to do the monitoring of the groundwater, and they're also doing injection and so forth at some point, not now, but they will be, to eliminate the contaminants in the groundwater plume. So, current status, everything's been paid up. You folks should be very proud of yourselves. You're completely paid the balance. All the land has been transferred. The Army is done with that activity from the payments to the Army. Congratulations on that. I'll stop there. If there are questions, just feel free to just ask me questions. I'd be happy to talk or answer questions.
Thank you for that. Can you hear me? No? Oh. I'm sorry about that, Mike. Hold on, we're trying to get our.
Oh.
Together.
No worries.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Yes,
Okay,
I can.
so if you would go back to slide number 6,
Okay.
where you show the map.
Hold for 1 second.
I just have a question about the URA and where the Stevens Lake is on that slide.
Okay, hold on. Let me go right up there. And let me share my screen again. Okay. There we go. Okay, so you're talking about here's Joy Lake down here, and then you're talking about
Your map is not up on the screen. I just see you.
hold on for one. Oh, hold on for 1 second. Hold on. I have to share that again. There we go. Okay. You should have my screen.
No,
Not yet.
just see you.
That's you.
It's in your packet too, okay?
Yeah, I want to.
Yep. So this is the south parcel as I talked about.
So Yeah, I want it on slide 6. There is a rectangle around a building. And then there's another rectangle around the building, and then there's some, green space in the middle. Is that green space all URA?
That's the very first one that you came to.
Hold on a second, let me, hold on, I'm trying to, wait a minute, hold on here. Oh, here we go. Let me go this way. No, wrong way.
I believe it is.
Okay,
Updated.
And then where is
let's see. You tell me on this one, this slide?
We still don't see you.
Still not, you still don't have the
You
slides
have to
up.
stop sharing and then share again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Stop share and then share again.
alrighty. Let me see if I can get rid of this thing here. Get rid of that. Let me do this. There we go. Okay, there we go. Zach got it?
Yes.
Yes, it's on there now. So if you can go to the first map, that has the green space.
Okay. So to this figure?
No,
No, it's one,
the very first, let's see, I guess it was considered the second map.
No, South.
Okay.
tripart strategy, yeah.
Right
That
there.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That one?
Yes.
Okay.
So on this screen, can you point out where Joy Lake is? I mean, Stevens Lake, is that red area?
That's right in here.
Okay, and so all of the green space, is that what you're saying the URA owns?
At this, yeah, the URA, except for the piece where, I mean, where 600 and 650 over here is coming in. Robinson Weeks has got that piece. The balance of this is open. Yeah, it's URA property, correct.
Okay, so part of that green space to the right is Robinson Weeks in that building, 600, you said,
Yeah, that's over here.
pardon me?
Yes, that's over here. That's their two buildings are over here. It
That's
would
the
be
one
east,
that's under-
east of Stevens Lake. They've got a building. They got a building right about here where my cursor is. That's the 650 building, right about here. And the 600 building is in this space. Correct.
Okay, and let me ask you, I know that there was a lake, I don't know for sure, but, I was told that there was a lake that was drained. Is part of the lake that I believe, Technic Concrete, area that he,
That, yes, that was the that's the original Marchman Lake Dam,
Okay, so that's the Marchman Lake.
which was long ago, and it's right behind Billy's property. And they drained that lake when we did, Fred was here at the time, Fred Bryant. That lake was drained in order to be able to repair the dam at Marchman Lake.
Okay, and what would keep us from draining this lake?
Um, I guess I'd have to look into that. I don't see, it's right now, it does, for that area, it does act as a stormwater detention pond. So the Army used that principally as a stormwater detention pond, and it still functions that way. So as stormwater's coming off site, and now it's coming off from different areas, and there's different ponds that have been created. Um, you'd have to look at the stormwater collection network and what's feeding into Stevens Lake. And then see if you wanted to just take it offline, and I'm not sure if you could or not. You'd have to do an evaluation on that to see what's going there. And then if you cut that off, what's not getting stormwater detention. Because that's how that pond functions right now. It's acting as a stormwater detention pond.
Okay, so I know in passing, you probably can give me some historical concept on this, because I don't think I was a part of the board at the time. But when, Stevens Lake was, when we were talking about, kind of what we're gonna do as far as development of, the Fort Gillum.
Yeah.
Lake was looked at as possibly like a recreational type thing, or, do you have any, recall of that?
I do. I remember it was discussed as something that that the board at the time was considering. But I don't know that it went any further, and I'm not sure that, oh, I know that Oasis and our team, we didn't do any further evaluation of that lake and dam structure that went with it, other than what we've already talked about. I mean, so I don't like in terms of a hydraulic analysis to understand how much water is coming in there and what's draining into it now. And if decide to drain that lake, the question's going to be where's the stormwater detention? Because there's a pretty big, just, coming up to the north here in this area. Um, these stormwater utilities, I believe, come into the north part of the canyon that's been heavily eroded, and ultimately makes its way into this lake for detention. So what I'm saying is, the board would need to commission somebody to do the hydraulic evaluation of this network. It's complicated now because you've got building over here, buildings over here, buildings over here, stormwater ponds, and then you've got drainage channels along here too that now feed into that. Historically, that's what the Army used it for. This was used as a stormwater detention pond for them. But if you wanted to do something in terms of take it offline altogether and maybe drain it and then fill it in and have something to build with, that I know that long ago there were some thoughts about that. The question would be, you need to have somebody to do an analysis of this, hydraulic analysis, to see, can you do that? And my guess is you're going to have to replace this detention with some other detention somewhere else.
So I guess one of my questions, just from hearing, your explanation, is how is it a detention center for the buildings that were built, without us knowing, I guess, would be the question. If it's,
Well, I would say that the majority of these buildings, like there's a pond right up here, there's a detention pond that was already built, and they're having to work on detaining their water here. But then what I don't know is, I don't have I don't have that master plan, but I mean, we could find out. But I don't know where those particular ponds that were built to support the individual buildings, which is true, they did do that. I don't know where they go and how they impact Stevens. I'm not familiar with that hydraulics.
Stormwater requires property, their stormwater runoff on their property.
can you hear?
No, I couldn't hear that last bit about stormwater pond.
No, I'm asking, Mike, did you hear the comments by the board? Did you hear the comments by the board?
Yeah, yes, I can now.
Okay, say what you just said.
Well, I just said typically laws require for property to maintain their stormwater runoff on their property. So I'm just trying to figure out why we are counting Stevens Lake as a potential stormwater runoff for those buildings when they're required to run on their own property.
There might be an easement.
Oh, okay. Is there a reason why this was not, I know
The POA doesn't own any property. Relegated. They could,
POA.
the property owners association.
is there, because eventually it would make sense to give everything over to the POA.
Yeah, I think, the point about for the next agenda item, I think that's kind of one of the things that we should discuss. And also getting an accurate survey of the existing acreage. Because as you can see from the GIS map, for Clayton County, it's incorrect. It refers, there's about like 10 different, or exaggerating, not 10, but several parcels come up when you click on Stevens Lake. And it also says it's owned by the Development Authority, which is not correct. So I think it would be good
So that means that the county has to,
county just has to update their
has to
records.
update their record.
But we need, to know specific, like how big our land, like whether there's any buildable area around Stevens Lake before we consider.
Well, and the other thing too, to keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, any and all of the stormwater features that are here at the facility are permitted through, through I think it's Clayton County, right? So that all the developers have to go through and get their permitting and so forth for the stormwater detention facilities. That, to your point, I heard that said that each of the parcels is taking care of their own water, which is true for detention. But then that water ultimately is making its way, it's making its way somewhere else, and it's most likely making its way down maybe in the Stevens, or it might be coming in some other way. It's making its way down to the other drainage features because these are all, they're all effectively detention ponds if you think about it. So what I'd suggest is what might be a prudent thing to do is to just get a little bit more background on um, those documents that have been used to prepare for this, for example, this pond up here for the stormwater detention or retention pond up there. They had to get permitting done with that and done. We haven't done any of that work for any of the developers. I haven't done it for Robinson Weeks or any of the other buildings, but I'm sure that they've all done it.
You didn't actually say when the dam was built. What year was the dam built?
You mean for Stevens Lake?
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. It's been there as long as the Army's been there, so it's, post World War II, I would imagine, but I have no way to know that for sure. I mean, we could look at aerial photos and see how far they go back, and we can identify the lake or the detention pond, rather.
Sorry,
But that know that those structures know that Stevens and any of the other lakes that are there, that's what the Army was using for stormwater detention for their efforts.
oh, yeah. You have a question?
And, Mr. Mike, I did not realize that your contract had ended in June. So thank you for continuing on to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, no problem. I know that, last time we talked, I know that guys were trying to get things together and whatnot, and there was still, funding available, so we were able to stretch that time to be able to continue to serve you all.
Okay, is there anything else that you needed to present?
No, that's everything. And like as I said before, I will I was going to prepare a formal submittal for our contract, which would include assistance from Walden Ashworth. And then you all can take, it's not super critical. I mean, it's not like it has to get reviewed immediately. There's time available for that. And I don't know, are you folks having a meeting I imagine in January sometime?
Yes, our next meeting will be in January.
Okay. So, maybe what we could do is shoot, I can get you those documents, those requests for contract renewal in advance. And I'd be happy to come to the meeting in January.
Are you the person that would be able to give us information regarding, um, um, if we want to drain the dam? Or is it something else we would have to do?
No, I mean, with our partner, with Walden Ashworth, I would have them assist us in that consultation because they do that type of work all the time.
They would present a proposal as to what the cost would be.
Yes, correct.
Wouldn't you have to find out first if there are any access easements to that dam, something that we've agreed to? If it is true that they're using it as some type of stormwater, if not, you don't want to try to reveal that.
Are there, would there be additional costs to the 4,500 to examine whether drain?
In terms of the in terms of the request for the evaluation for the Stevens Lake Dam evaluation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we're looking to get additional support from Walden Ashworth in regard to the hydrology of Stevens Lake and the areas that feed to it, that would be in addition to what they've just put forward, which is the $4,500, which is to do an assessment of the dam itself, the Stevens Lake Dam itself, which we've noted is leaking along the emergency spillway.
So their assessment of the dam, you know what that entails? Is it just saying, yeah, there is a leak?
On their assessment includes a site reconnaissance out to the site to evaluate that. And it also includes additional fact. Give me 1 minute. I will read to you. So their task for the $4,500 consists of an evaluation of the general condition of the dam based on available data and visual inspection. Included in the work will be visual inspection of the dam, report of findings, conclusions, recommendations, general cost estimate, and a detailed investigation analysis involving topographic mapping, subsurface investigations, testing. Detailed computational valuations are not included as a part of that scope. So the scope is the visual, the report of findings, conclusions, and recommendations. And I think there's probably money in there if you would like to have them come in and present those findings to the board, we could probably get that done too.
Do you have a copy of that proposal?
Excuse me?
Oh, I thought it was, I thought it was.
No, so he was, basically, he was gonna include in his contract.
The hydraulic.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of questions on our part. I think that, we can be taking this until we did the, we did that agreement prior to the meeting. To, attorney at the party to take a look at it as well as,
We may have to keep it out to February because of the holidays and everything coming up. And then we need the second Thursday of the month. So
let's just say, let's table it until we talk after our.
Now, just so that I'm clear, yes, ma'am. This was just an update.
yes.
As opposed to, so you don't have to table anything,
Okay.
because it's just an update, and we can still bring back to your direction the, contract after we legal review.
Okay.
So this was simply a update that led to what I'm doing.
Okay, and, to that, also found out about the easements that you were talking about. Easements to Stevens. If there's. Anything else you all have to add? Yeah, economic development director over there. You got anything you want to say there? Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you, and thank you to the,
Safe
to the,
travels.
yes, thank you. Thank you to the board, and happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Yes, you too.
Take care.